So, by the time you're watching this video, Genshin Impact's 5.5 update will be out, which actually has, a decent amount of content in it. It's a bit early for me to give my thoughts properly on most of it, but there is an aspect of the update that I want to talk about in particular, and it's actually a quality of life update to another recent addition to the game. Basically, Genshin introduced the ability to craft artifacts with specific main stat and 2 specific substats, so basically the ability to at least get a chance to roll into what you want and have a quick choice for building a character. Of course, the catch is that in Genshin, you have to roll for upgrading substats as you go, and it's very easy for those rolls to wind up never hitting the stats you actually wanted. So it becomes a waste of a very limited resource in the game. We'll talk about that in a moment. So the solution they came to is that crafted artifacts this way are now guaranteed to roll into the stats that you chose at least twice. I mean, out of 5 times, so it's now guaranteed to not be completely useless, and at the very least a starting point for the artifact grind that gives you a piece that actually initiates what they want to do. So it's an improvement, technically. But I want to talk about this system because a lot of people, including myself, thought that it would actually make the artifact grind better, when in reality, it kind of just makes things worse. And I want to talk about how this being their fix for how bad this system is, even in comparison to their own other games, is really just an insult to the people who are sticking with Genshin and wanting it to get better. Okay, right, so let's talk about that very limited resource that you use to make artifacts, Sanctifying Elixir. If you look down at the play bar and see what I titled this system, you'll actually see what I think about it already. But let me elaborate on why I say that. So, when this was first introduced, I was under the impression this was going to work like self-modeling resin in Honkai Star Rail. Maybe because these games are made by the same company, that'll continue being important. Even if not exactly the same, the basic expectation was that one of this limited resource was going to let you make the customized artifact, which, even though the resource is limited, is at the very least a fair trade-off. We'll talk about the limitations of acquiring Sanctifying Elixir later. Right now, I want to focus on the thing that makes that limitation even more of a problem. It's not one-to-one. Well, that's not true. It costs you 1 if you're doing a flower or a feather, which you would only need to do this if you were getting some of the worst rolls in existence. It's incredibly easy to get good rolls on these because you don't even need to look at the main stat. Seriously, this use of Sanctifying Elixir is pointless, and for all but the newest sets, you can basically farm double by trading in bad ones for opportunities to roll new artifacts. And the newest sets eventually get added to that lineup anyway. Every other piece in an artifact set costs somewhere between 2 and 4 Sanctifying Elixirs. As a reminder, none of the other Hoyoverse games do this. Unsurprisingly, the one that has the most variability in main stats, the Goblet, is the one that costs 4. For reference, it has 12 different options in comparison to even the 7 that the Crown has, which are the 2 sets that need this system the most, simply because of how much more of a dice roll getting that main stat can be when you factor in the dice roll of getting that slot at all. And seriously, in both Zenless Zone Zero and Honkai Star Rail, the ones with fixed main stats, you don't have to use a resource like this at all for crafting. You basically just trade in your bad artifact for this, and while they don't have substat tuning, that just indicates how pointless this system is when it's only for substat tuning. But I know what you're already thinking in the comments, because Hoyo fan comments are very predictable. We get more of it. Technically, I suppose that's true. We sometimes get them from events. We get some from Natlan's exploration progression, but I'm not actually going to count the latter because, well, this is supposed to be a resource we're able to use in the future, so one-off acquisition of it isn't really valuable, now, is it? Importantly, it's also not a reliable measurement, and while technically the events aren't either, since Hoyo is pretty inconsistent about events giving Sanctifying Elixir, I'm going to presume that one event per patch would give you one, given the same rate as the Crown of Insight, since that's the rate of rarity they seem to come through in. We also get one by trading leveled up 5-star artifacts. In theory, you should be able to trade 5 level 20 artifacts that you don't want to keep for 1 Sanctifying Elixir once per patch. Okay, so are any of you realizing how fucking atrocious this degree of scarcity for 1 where 1 is useless is yet? Like, even if we compare this to a Crown of Insight, you have one Crown of Insight. You can guarantee some kind of upgrade on your account with a level 10 skill on a character you use, but if you spend multiple of this, you could still be up shit's creek with unlucky rolls, very much including the guaranteed rolls into your chosen substats that the new version is giving. Hell, even if you spend one for some ungodly reason, you could still brick the effort it took to get that one. I want to go back to comparisons to Star Rail and ZZZ again, you know, the other games that this very exact same fucking company makes, because their resource for basically the same thing is actually more plentiful when you look at the whole picture. Let's push aside the exploration stuff, the event stuff. Genshin does include Sanctifying Elixir on the Battle Pass, but only if you pay for the Battle Pass. It's not part of the pass's free rewards either. Star Rail does give you a free self-modeling resin on the Battle Pass, and another later if you pay for the Battle Pass. So not only does Genshin use more, it also gives you less. ZZZ also gives you a tuning calibrator on the Battle Pass without paying for it, and doesn't even put the thing on the paid version. But I will say that ZZZ is actually less generous overall, so I don't think any events give tuning calibrators, although people who play ZZZ more often than I do could probably correct me on that. Even if, whether that's true or not, the point stands that if you're actually getting more of what you need, considering the difference in how much you need to craft your harder to acquire pieces. And like, I can't even make the argument that they're locking the quality of life improvement behind a paywall in this case either, since you can't even buy a way to get more than what Genshin allows you to get per patch. Star Rail actually does let you buy it. I will be fair though. Genshin's system does give you a guarantee that you'll at least have 2 of the substats you want, and now guarantees that you get 2 rolls that fall somewhere in them, which ZZZ doesn't let you do at all, and Star Rail makes you use a more costly resource to do so. At least, in my opinion, it's more costly. Star Rail's system giving you the option to set substats, and even only 1 substat at a lower cost, or again, none with no additional cost, kind of points out how this is actually not that great for Genshin. The problem with the way that Genshin's artifact system delves too far into RNG really has nothing to do with the problem with the system. The problem is less so the immense variability of substats, but rather that you have that in combination with the variability on the main stat. I could probably make an entire video about how many degrees of variability there are on the artifact system in pretty much all the Hoyo games, but Genshin especially. Star Rail does give you a relatively cheap option to take one gamble and ignore the other. ZZZ's ability to ignore one of these 2 gambles is admittedly more limited because of their resource for doing so being more limited, but it's not asking for what has a high chance of being multiple months of work for one piece that honestly has a pretty good chance of not solving the issue at all. The way I was originally under the impression that this was going to work, that's what would have resolved Genshin's issue, even if not fully, and just made it a ton better. What they did became a pointless system added to the game, and then when people start talking about guaranteed rolls, like it actually saved the Sanctifying Elixir system, I was saying to myself the whole time, and this has been quite a while because I knew about this before it was official because of leaks, that it didn't solve anything. It just made a useless system seem less useless on the surface while not repairing the actual thing that makes it useless. And this is not the first time that Genshin has done this. But I think a lot of those other instances are for at least one other video. But what do you think? Do you feel like getting guaranteed rolls on your selected substats helps at all? Is there an aspect of this that you like that I'm just plain missing? Let me know how somehow it being a gacha game is an excuse in the comments, and be sure to leave a like on your way out. But until next time, this is the effing Boonslayer, signing out.